On the outskirts of Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region, there is a 50-kilometer defense line. Covered in mud, barbed wire, and drone wreckage, this place is an absolute meat grinder. Through the early morning mist, a heavy Russian armored group is gearing up for a fresh spring offensive. To the Russian commanders, who are used to deep armored thrusts, the terrain looks like it's on their side. Through the lens of Russian tactical drones, the Ukrainian line is packed with anti-tank trenches and mines, but it seems to have a few fatal gaps. These gaps have no heavy bunkers. They're flat, wide open, and lead straight into the heart of the defense. The lead Russian commander, carrying that trademark Moscow hubris, orders the armored column to punch right through these safe channels at full speed. They think they've spotted a Ukrainian mistake. They think that if they just tank the damage for the first few hundred meters, they can tear the whole line wide open. But the most terrifying thing in war isn't an enemy locked behind unbreachable walls. It's the door they intentionally leave open for you. The Russians completely misread the Ukrainian defense logic. These aren't gaps at all. This is the most cold-blooded design in modern defensive engineering. A funnel trap, or what US military doctrine calls a kill zone. The fatal flaw of these steel beasts is their absolute reliance on their path. To dodge the dense minefields on both flanks, the Russian armor is forced into a single-file line, slowly squeezing into this wide-open space with zero cover. But what they don't know is that from hidden positions over a dozen kilometers away, the Grim Reaper has already locked onto these exact coordinates. And the thing delivering the killing blow isn't some expensive, high-tech smart weapon. It's a Cold War veteran reeking of old engine oil, officially retired by the US military back in the 90s. A 203mm M110 self-propelled heavy howitzer, freshly dragged out of a Greek warehouse. This is Tactical Trace. We don't worship the tech tree, we only ask one question. Does it work? The answer from the outskirts of Kramatorsk in 2024 left all those high-tech military experts dead silent. If you believe that modern terrain engineering plus a dusty Cold War cannon can rewrite the rules of defense, drop Killzone in the comments and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's see how these million-dollar machines walked right into their own graves. Strip away the high-tech shell of modern warfare, and at its core, it's always a brutal game of accounting and cost efficiency. These M110s, rushed into the Ukrainian 52nd Artillery Brigade, weren't highly thought of at first. They are old, so old that the US actually took their scrapped barrels and turned them into GBU-28 bunker busters to bomb Iraq. Worse yet, this gun is incredibly clunky. One vehicle needs a crew of 13 guys just to run it, with 8 of them waiting on standby in the ammo truck behind it. Its rate of fire is agonizingly slow. Even pushing it to its absolute limits, the most seasoned veterans can only fire 1 round every 2 minutes. On a modern battlefield where every second counts, and the sky is swarming with drones, something this heavy and slow shouldn't survive 3 days. So if it's so clunky and so slow, why did Ukraine not only take them, but also spend nearly $230 million through Czech networks to buy 60 of these guns and 150,000 rounds of ammo? Are the Ukrainians crazy? The answer is that the Ukrainians found a tactical hack to cover up all of its flaws, and that's the kill zone we mentioned earlier. The M110 doesn't need to be mobile because it doesn't need to chase the enemy. Ukraine's tactic is this: use RM-70 multiple rocket launchers to suppress the flanks and use drones and minefields to force the Russians to detour. Every single detour pushes the Russians right into that wide-open, unprotected space. Russian electronic warfare radars are sweeping the skies like crazy, hunting for the electromagnetic signals of Ukrainian high-tech fire control systems. But the M110 position is dead quiet. Because in this carefully crafted trap, the M110 doesn't even need radar to aim. Days ago, using basic geometry and test firing, the artillerymen already locked their elevation and azimuth dead onto the coordinates of that gap. This is an absolutely devastating economic slaughter. Cost-wise, a single 198-pound heavy shell runs just under $1,300. You don't need to fire 10 rounds a minute. You just need to take your time, wait 2 minutes, and drop one perfect shot when the enemy is packed like sardines in that gap. $1,300 of scrap metal instantly traded for millions of dollars of Russian armor wreckage. The time is 4:05 a.m. The calm before the storm is suffocating. The Russian armored column is still cruising along its rigid, pre-planned route. The lead infantry fighting vehicles have just rolled into that seemingly safe V-shaped funnel. The commander is even on the radio reporting a smooth advance. They think they've broken the line. They have no idea they've just walked into an inescapable, absolute death zone. The trap springs. The Ukrainian micro-drone hovering above the funnel doesn't drop a bomb. The operator just calmly says one phrase into the comms. Target is in the net. Over a dozen kilometers away, the 13 artillerymen on the M110 spring into action. It's a pure, violent symphony of muscle and machinery. 4 mud-covered loaders heave the 90-kilo M509A1 dual-purpose cluster shell onto the loading tray. With the raw roar of grinding metal, the hydraulic rammer charges forward like an angry bull, violently shoving that massive shell right into the 203mm breech. Slam the heavy breech shut, load the powder charges, and the gun chief violently yanks the lanyard. Why use cluster munitions instead of high explosives? Because in a wide-open kill zone, cluster bombs are the ultimate nightmare for infantry and light armor. This highly compressed kill chain closes out in just seconds. With a massive boom that rips through the morning fog, the immense recoil forces the 28-ton chassis violently downward. The hydraulic spades plow deep trenches into the frozen earth. High-tech seems so useless in this exact moment, as this heavy shell, programmed for death, screams toward the V-shaped kill zone at supersonic speeds. The only thing the Russian tank crews can hear is the shrieking wail of air being violently torn apart by extreme mass. And then comes the terrifying rain of metal. The M509A1 cluster shell bursts at a precise altitude hundreds of meters directly above the convoy. Countless submunitions pour down like the Grim Reaper's hail over the unprotected open ground. The overpressure shockwave instantly shatters the organs of infantry caught outside their vehicles. The blazing jets of molten metal slice right through the thin top armor of the vehicles like a hot knife through butter. In this hundreds of meters long death funnel, the trapped Russian forces don't even have room to turn around. They can only sit there in despair, absorbing wave after wave of absolute destruction, arriving right on schedule every 2 minutes. These blasts, shattering the Donbass morning, bring more than just the wreckage of a few vehicles and scattered infantry. They trigger a strategic shockwave at the tactical level. When Russian frontline commanders look at the absolute mess of a battlefield streamed back from their drones, they are forced to swallow a bitter pill. Their spring offensive, fueled by endless human waves and armored assaults, is being bled dry by the Ukrainians using a very old trap with a new twist. This casts a massive psychological shadow over the Russian armored units. Walking into a minefield is death, but walking down a safe channel is an artillery death sentence. Putin's proud armored flood is stopped dead in its tracks outside the red line of Kramatorsk. Reviewing this textbook case of Cold War relics slaughtering modern armor, we find that Russia's crushing defeat wasn't due to inferior weapons. It was due to a double fatal error. First, the arrogance of intelligence and perception. Moscow had blind faith in their numbers of men in armor. They thought retired weapons posed no threat, and completely underestimated their enemy's creativity to turn scrap metal into a killer. The Ukrainians used precise trench engineering to prove one thing: there are no outdated weapons, only foolish users. Second, the extreme laziness of tactical thinking. The Russian army is still stuck in the 1950s mindset of massive mechanized pushes. Their extreme reliance on set paths makes their behavior incredibly predictable. When your troops can only march like mindless worker ants right through a gap perfectly designed for you by the enemy, even if you have the most tanks in the world, you are still just prey. This battle reveals the absolute truth of asymmetric warfare. You don't need to go head-to-head with a stronger enemy on artillery numbers or fire rate. You just need to be a patient hunter. Weave a net out of minefields and obstacles. Force the enemy into your most comfortable firing angle, and then use the purest laws of physics to deliver the ultimate execution, both physically and mentally. This is the equation we believe in here at Tactical Trace. A clever tactical trap, plus an absolutely violent tool, wins the war. A $1,300 shell didn't just blow through tank armor, it shattered a rigid chain of command. If you want to see through the cold data to the real war games and hardcore tactics underneath, make sure to subscribe to Tactical Trace, hit the like button, and ring that bell. We don't worship technological gaps, we only care about lethal efficiency. I'll see you guys on the next battlefield.